This whole Middle East and the West Asia have become volatile over the years. Day by day the situation is getting worse. This region has become the Games of Thrones of various countries, especially all the countries of this region. Every single day bomb blasting, missile firing, hijacking related news comes out from this region. This has become the nightmare for every single citizen or the people who have been living in this region. Most of the war have been fought by Israel with its neighbor countries including Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine and many more. Sometimes this region was busy in war between Iran and Iraq. Sometimes ISIS was in news. Sometimes most of the groups of Muslim countries comes together to fight against Israel, who is the sole non-Muslim country in this region. Sometimes these Muslim countries fight covert war against Israel by supporting Palestinian-led Hamas militant group, Hezbollah and non-state militant group, and the rest of the time they keep busy in making such plannings. These days, this West Asian region has become the hot spot of the world since 7 October 2023, when an armed conflict between Israel and Palestinian-led militant group has been taking place chiefly in and around the Gaza Strip. It began when Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel from Gaza Strip. After clearing the militant from its territory, the Israeli military embarked on an extensive and aerial bombardment of the Gaza Strip and followed by large-scale ground invasion. As we know that Palestine is a Muslim country in this region, so most of the Muslim countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon and many more Muslim countries have a sympathy toward Palestine. Since Israel is a sole Jewish country in this region, so most of the Muslim countries of this region have an animosity against Israel and wants to wipe out the Israel from this region. And Iran is one of the among these countries. So Iran, along with other Muslim countries, support Palestine by financially, military and by other possible way. In most of the cases, Iran clandestinely sends military weapons to Palestine so that Palestine could respond or take offensive attack against Israel. If I talk about the close relation in the past between the Iran and the Israel, since the birth of the Israel in 1948, both the countries Israel and Iran interacted to each other and maintained a cordial relation. Iran was a focal point of Israel's foreign policy. After initial stumbles, the two countries developed a close relationship based on the shared interest in keeping the Soviet out and pan-Arabism down. Various types of diplomatic, military and the trade ties endured for some 3 decades as Iran was an important source of oil for Israel. But the mutual interest that sustained relations withered after the 1979 Iranian Revolution and the Soviet Union collapse in 1989. The theocracy began seeking regional influence by doing more than the Arabs to aid Israel's enemies while the Americans replaced the Soviets. Despite its enmity towards the Jewish state, Iran secretly brought weapons from Israel after Iraq's 1980 invasion. The sales ended in the mid-1980s without producing the rapprochement that some Israeli had hoped for. Relations deteriorated further as Iran took a frontline position against Israel by training and equipping Lebanon's Hezbollah and encouraging Palestinian attacks on Israel from Gaza and the West Bank. In 2006, Iran and Hezbollah fought Israel's longest war due partly to Iran's rearming of Hezbollah. Israel's northern border remains a serious flashpoint. By 2010, the tension has reached unparalleled heights due to the combination of Iran's suspected pursuit of a nuclear weapons capability and its rhetoric, which stress Israel's illegitimacy and even its disappearance. Israel has considered unilateral military action to impede Iran's nuclear efforts, although its leaders would prefer the United States and the international community persuade or compel Iran to abandon any program that could be used to develop a nuclear weapon. Continuously supporting to Palestinian, Lebanese and other militant groups by Iran and showing sympathy toward these Islamic countries, military group, and at the last, Iran lost its patience and directly attacked on this April 2024 by firing a barrage of hundreds of missiles and drone attacks on Israel. Now we will talk about when the relation between the two countries started straining. Following the Iranian Revolution and the fall of the Pahlavi dynasty in 1979, Iran adopted a sharp anti-Israel stance. Iran cut off all official relations with Israel, official statements, state institutes and events. Iran ceased to accept Israeli passport and the holder of Iranian passports were banned from traveling to the occupied Palestine. The Israeli embassy in Tehran was closed and handed over to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Ayatollah Khamenei, who was the Iranian Islamic revolutionary politician and religious leader and who served as the first supreme leader of Iran from 1979 until his death in 1989. He was the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the leader of Iranian Revolution, which overthrew Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and ended defeated the Iranian monarchy. As soon as the Ayatollah came in power, he declared Israel an enemy of Islam and a little Satan. This little Satan is used especially by the Iranian leaders for Israel, which is an anti-Zionist derogatory epithet. He also called Great Satan for United States and Lesser Satan for Soviet Union. During his era, one side his government maintained clandestine ties to Israel while hoping that Iran would get Jewish state assistance. At the same time, Iran provided support for Islamist Shia Lebanese parties, helping to consolidate them into a single political and military organization, Hezbollah, and providing them the ideology, indoctrination, military training, and equipment to attack Israeli and American targets. Now we will talk about the first ever attack from Iran's territory to Israel. This was the first time in the history of Iran-Israel tension that Iran's first ever direct attack on Israel from its own territory. The supreme leader of Iran, that is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said, "It doesn't matter that how many missiles were launched and how many of them hit their targets is not the primary question, but what really matters is that Iran demonstrated its power during this operation." Iran's attack came in response to a suspected Israeli strike on 1st April 2024 on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria, which killed 2 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps generals, among others. Now we will talk about the other reasons behind this attack. For decades, Iran and Israel have fought a shadow war across the Middle East, trading attacks by land, sea and air, and in cyberspace. Iran has largely used foreign proxies such as Lebanon's Hezbollah militia to attack Israeli interests, while targeted assassination of Iranian military leaders and nuclear scientists have been a key part of Israel's strategy. Now we will talk about some recent history of the conflict. In August 2019, an Israeli airstrike killed 2 Iranian trained militants in Syria. A drone set off a blast near a Hezbollah office in Lebanon, and an airstrike in Qaim, Iraq, which killed a commander who was Iran-backed Iraqi militia. Israel accused Iran at the time of trying to establish an overland arms supply line through Iraq and northern Syria to Lebanon. The main aim of Israeli strike behind this was stopping Iran and signaling to its proxies that Israel would not tolerate a fleet of smart missiles on its border. In January 2020, Israel greeted with satisfaction the assassination of Major General Qasem Soleimani, who was a commander of the foreign-facing arm of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in an American drone strike in Baghdad. Iran hit back by attacking 2 bases in Iraq that housed American troops with a barrage of missiles, wounding about 100 of US military personnel. In July 2021, an oil tanker managed by an Israeli-owned shipping company was attacked off the coast of Oman, killing 2 crew members. The attack was carried out by Iranian drones, which was a response of Iran to an Israeli strike in Syria. In November 2021, Israel killed Iran's top nuclear scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh and followed up with the assassination of a Revolutionary Guard commander Colonel Syed Khodai in May 2022. In December 2023, after Israel's bombardment of Gaza began in response to the October 7 Hamas-led assault, Iranian-backed militia stepped up their own attacks, and late last year, Iran accused Israel of killing a high-level military figure, Brigadier General Said Raji Moshavi, in a missile strike in Syria. General Moshavi was a senior advisor to the Revolutionary Guard and was also a close associate of General Soleimani. He used to help oversee the shipment of arms of Hezbollah. In January 2024, an explosion in the suburb of Beirut, which is in Lebanon, killed Saleh al-Arari, a Hamas leader, along with 2 commanders from that group's armed wing. This was first assassination of top Hamas official outside the West Bank and Gaza in recent years. Officials from Hamas, Lebanon and the United States ascribed the blast to Israel. Hezbollah, which receives major support from Iran, stepped up its assault on Israel after Mr. al-Arari's death. Israel's military hit back at Hezbollah in Lebanon, killing several of group's commanders. In March and April 2024, an Israeli drone strike hit a car in southern Lebanon, killing at least 1 person. Israel's military said it had killed the deputy commander of Hezbollah rocket and missile unit. Hezbollah acknowledged the death of a man, Ali Abdul Hassan Naim, but did not provide further details. The same day, airstrikes killed soldiers near Aleppo in northern Syria in what appeared to be one of the heaviest Israeli attacks in the country in years. The strikes killed 36 Syrian soldiers, in which 7 were Hezbollah fighters and a Syrian from a pro-Iran militia. Following it, Israel strikes on an Iranian embassy building in Damascus killed 3 top Iranian commanders and 4 officers. Now Now I will talk about Israel's response after Iran's first ever direct attack on Israel. In response to Israel's attack on an Iranian consulate in the Syrian capital Damascus, Iran launched more than 300 drones and 30 cruise missiles and at least 100 ballistic missiles toward Israel. Some 99% of the incoming barrage was intercepted either outside Israeli airspace or over the country itself. Israel and countries including the United States, UK, France, Jordan intercepted drones and cruise missiles, while its three-tier umbrella of missile defense system intercepted ballistic missiles. Israel abandoned plans for a much more extensive counter-strike on Iran after concerted diplomatic pressure from the United States and other foreign allies, and because the brunt of an Iranian assault on Israel's soil had been thwarted. Israeli leaders openly discussed about bombarding several military targets across Iran near Tehran, the Iranian capital, in retaliation for the Iranian strike. But in the end, after United States President Joe Biden, along with the British and German foreign minister, urged Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to prevent a whitened war. Then Israel opted for a more limited strike that avoided significant damage, diminishing the likelihood of an escalation, at least for now. If I talk about Iran and Israel's animosity, Iran does not recognize Israel's right to exist and seeks its eradication. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, has previously called Israel a cancerous tumor that will undoubtedly be uprooted and destroyed. Israel believes that Iran poses an existential threat as evidenced by Iran's rhetoric. Its build-up of proxy forces in the regions, including the Lebanese Shia militant group Hezbollah that are sworn to Israel's destruction, and its funding and arming of Palestinian groups including Hamas. Israel also accuses Iran of secretly trying to develop nuclear weapons. If I talk about the capabilities of their military, from geographically perspective, Iran is much bigger than Israel, and Iran has a population of nearly 90 million, which is nearly 10 times as big as Israel's, but this does not translate into greater military power. Iran has invested heavily in missiles and drones. It has a vast arsenal of its own, but has also been supplying significant amount to its proxies, the Houthi in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon. If I talk about the nuclear power, Israel is assumed to have its own nuclear weapon but maintains an official policy of deliberate ambiguity. Iran does not have nuclear weapons and also denies it is attempting to use its civilian nuclear program to become a nuclear armed state. But last year, the global nuclear watchdog found uranium particles enriched to 83.7% purity, very close to weapon grade, at Iran's Undergo Fordo site. Iran has been openly enriching uranium to 60% purity for more than 2 years in breach of a 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. If I talk about its ally, then Iran has built up a network of allies and proxy forces in the Middle East that it says form part of an axis of resistance challenging the United States and Israeli interests in the region. It supports them to varying degrees. Syria is Iran's most important ally. Iran, along with Russia, helped the Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad survive the country's decade-long civil war. Iran's relationship with Russia is also becoming increasingly significant. Iran has provided Russia with Shahed attack drones. In lieu of this, Russia planned to provide Iran with more advanced aircraft. On the other side, Israel is a known NATO ally and USA's major defense partner in this region who will fulfill the armed requirement to Israel.